Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a therapist at Family Tree Counseling Associates, and I'm here today with...
I'm Andrew Holzman. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist here at Family Tree Counseling in Carmel, Indiana.
And our topic today that we'd like to discuss between us and have you join us in this discussion by listening in this video is entitled Overcoming Reactivity. And I wanted to and suggested a video on this particular topic because I believe Andy and I both have a lot of folks who ask us about this topic, and a lot of people who come for help struggle with this issue and have struggles and problems regarding emotional reactivity, reactivity with their spouse, reactivity in their family, reactivity with their family of origin, and they really come and say, you know, I've got a problem. And then there are even some who come and are not aware that they have that problem, and they do. So today we want to talk about, first of all, what is reactivity, or what is emotional reactivity? And maybe Andy can start by describing some for us.
Right. I think emotional reactivity, or I know emotional reactivity, is when you're kind of dealing with some pain. You're dealing with not being heard. You're dealing with something happening that you don't want to happen in your life. You're feeling victimized. You're feeling angry and upset, and you react probably overblown in the situation. You're reacting that if the situation is a small situation, you're dealing with it in a greater way. You're kind of being very angry, or you're very cut off. You can be reactive by being disconnected. So there are different ways you can be reactive.
And I would agree. I think that's a good explanation of reactivity. And I think of it as that an over-intense emotional experience that is not situation appropriate. In other words, it goes beyond the situation. And that's what I think of as emotional reactivity. Andy was talking about how reactivity can be on the aggressive side, you know, anger, irritability, or it can be on the distancing side, or passive or withdrawing side. And it's interesting because it can take different forms and shapes in that way, which in my way of thinking and in a family systems way of thinking is actually intimacy management. In other words, we can be reactive because we are trying to manage our intimacy.
Right.
And if things get too close, we might become reactive.
Right.
And because we can't handle that much closeness. And
Vulnerability.
And vulnerability.
And being known and being seen and being understood in a way that makes us uncomfortable. That would be too much for many people.
I think of it as being, you know, we react on a 1 to 10 scale, of react at an 8 when the situation really is really worthy of a 2.
Right.
In terms of that reactivity. So that the reactivity is the 3 through 8.
Right. And that's coming a lot from our family of origin, as we were talking earlier. How we observed our families deal with stuff and how we were in our families. So if you had a screamer for a father or a mother, or you had somebody who, you know, or you had a family where they didn't talk about anything. I mean, I hear clients on both sides of that spectrum where, you know, nothing gets discussed and your emotions feel foreign and you feel like you're alone by having feelings, and that doesn't get expressed in your family. Well, what do you do with that? You know, that's kind of very powerful because you feel like an alien, or everybody's screaming and yelling and it's chaotic. And then you learn how to do that, and you expect that to be normal in your relationship with your spouse. So either way can be a reactive response to your inner pain, to not being heard, not being cared about, not being listened to, not being, you know, not feeling close enough or feeling too close, as you said.
Fears of being left, or abandonment. Or again, as we said, vulnerability. There are all kinds of underneath causes that can produce reactivity. And So maybe I can ask Andy, how would you help your clients deal with reactivity, or how would you get someone to see it? How do you help them?
Well, in the session, I'll often ask folks, if both parties are coming, to play out something, to tell me about something that's happened, so I get a first-hand window into what's going on with them.
To actually get to see it.
Just to see it, right. And sometimes it's, most people fight about very small things. It's
Right.
not the major things I think most couples handle fairly well. But it's the small things that are kind of bringing up abandonment or bringing up some kind of shame response that are difficult. And so they're role-playing, or they're talking about what's happened, and I'm seeing the reactions, and I want to point out to the person who's being reactive what's happening. I also want to ask the other person, how are you feeling? Because frequently that's not a question that gets asked. Things are very concrete in fights sometimes. So they're just discussing or talking about, fighting about. I had a couple that fought about a meatloaf recipe. They're fighting about,
Right.
they fight about anything and everything.
Right.
So, those kind of things are minor, of course. They're a 2 on the scale. But they're powerful because this particular fight had to do with his mother and her competence and, their relationship and abandonment and all kinds of different issues. So I want to kind of get a handle on that and be able to give them, or help them or share with them that information, and then, by pointing that out and also asking the person who's being reactive or the person who's being reacted to what it feels like. So, what's this like in this relationship, and what's going on, and is this the way that you're wanting to talk to each other?
And I think that's an excellent example of, so it sounds like you allow the couple to maybe experience that, then slow the process down so they can gain insight into, number one, that they're even being reactive. Sometimes couples are not even aware of that. Do you know that you're reacting to an 8 over a recipe? Oh, really? I guess I am. I'm ready to rip his head off, and all we're talking about is the meatloaf.
Right.
That's, even that can be insightful, just to know that. Then you slow it down even more and say, how are you feeling right now?
Right.
And so you get inside the person so that they can identify what's going on within them. And then you might tie it to other circumstances or other issues beyond what's right here in the room.
Exactly. Extrapolate it to their life.
Family of origin
Right.
issues,
Exactly.
old relationships in which they got hurt. What is causing this 8
Right.
about a meatloaf
Right.
for you?
And so, as Jerry would say, it's kind of an A response or a B response, and then there's many
C.
other. There's C, there's D, there's E, there's H, I, J.
And we only believe there's A or B.
Right.
Either I do nothing or I explode.
Right.
And that's all there is to my
Right.
experience.
I mean, therapy is not magic. This is not. We're not talking about something that's so beyond the realm of thought. It's really about talking about and identifying it first. What's going on? And what's going on that you learned how to do in your life, which is, of course, your mother, your father, your brothers and sisters, your family, your grandparents. And is that working for you? If it's not working for you, if you're exploding and you're reacting and you're pushing someone away, or you're shutting down and you're pushing yourself away, that might not be the level of intimacy and connection that you want in the relationship. So that's why people come in. They come into therapy because they're in pain. In some way they're in pain in their relationship if they're coming in for that.
And I think also resolving some of those underlying problems. I remember, there have been times where, let's say a woman was not valued by her father, and was always put down by her father, and was always criticized by her father, never accepted by her father. So now she gets into a relationship where her husband's got his own problems and kind of kind of, or she sits down on the couch because she's resting, and he kind of goes, something like that.
Right.
Well, she sees that as dad
Right.
and her own past issues being critical and unaccepting, and why are you being lazy and all this, and so she explodes at an 8. Well, actually, he was just going, because it had nothing to do with her.
Yeah, that's a good example.
But she sees that as there's dad again doing that, and that's deep inside her. So I see one way to begin to heal or to overcome reactivity is to deal with those underlying issues and resolve some of those with our family of origin and other issues that are other layered onto our relationship. And then we find ourselves naturally being not as reactive. It's a more natural,
Right.
we just don't, there's no hook. The hook is gone.
Right.
And I want to help folks not have those hooks.
Right.
And then they just find, gosh, I'm not doing the 8. Gosh, I would have done an 8
Right.
before. Now I'm, at a 3.
Right.
Gosh.
I think you get past what you're talking about, I believe, is you get past just being inner focused in a certain way and see what's really going on. You're seeing more of the reality of the situation, that there are other possibilities, that not everything is focused on hurting you because you've been hurt.
Because you've been hurt.
You've been hurt,
right. So everything is out to hurt me.
And of course your spouse, your husband or your wife is very powerful in your life, and they come home and and you're going to take that on, but you don't have to. So if you have insight and you have kind of other possibilities to look at, then you don't have to take it on in the same way. You don't have to deal with your feelings in a reactive way.
And I think working, overcoming reactivity, we've kind of talked about, has to do with talking, becoming self-aware, exploring reasons for that reactivity, learning to respond versus react, resolving some of those issues so that we automatically don't react in that way. And those are, I think, also of self-regulation, learning to regulate yourself. We talked about, most of the examples and things we've talked about is reactivity within a relationship.
Right.
And I think a relationship does have certain dynamics in it. And we need to learn to regulate ourselves to help bring those dynamics down, where we can think more clearly and see more realistically. And then we find ourselves reacting less. And as we work with couples, and I'm sure, Andy, as you've worked with them, after you worked with them for a while, they just naturally become more, or because of the organic changes that have taken place, I don't mean naturally, but that just sounds like it just happens because of something in the air. But the work you do with them, they do become less reactive with one another.
Absolutely.
And that later they go, gosh, I would have really exploded over that, and I'm not, that's not an issue anymore.
Look at what's not working. It's a perspective shift. I think of what we do very often as a perspective shift. And looking at the dynamics, that's a good way to say it. And, kind of getting inside those dynamics and helping a person or a couple pay attention to how it's not feeling good and how it's not working and why they're here in the first place. And there are choices. I mean, there aren't always choices. There are different perspectives. It's hard to see that when you grew up in, family A, and family A only thinks a certain way. And you married somebody from family B, and they think a different way, and that doesn't make sense to you. And so you're kind of...
We do marry another family.
We marry another family.
And we do marry another paradigm.
We marry another paradigm.
We have a paradigm, and we've married another paradigm.
So your family. So.
I hope you've been helped by our discussion today. Andy and I were talking about overcoming reactivity and some of the dynamics around reactivity. If you'd like help, and if you'd like more information, I hope you'll contact us at familytreecounseling.com. And we certainly appreciate you joining us today. And I thank Andy for being here today and talking.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you for listening to us. And I hope this has helped. And we are available if you want to talk to us.
Great. Have a good day.
Thank you.